Good afternoon. This is Harold Zawatsky. I am the chair of the Fairfield Board of Assessment Appeals. Today is Wednesday, May the 12th, and the time is 6:04 p.m., and I'm calling this meeting to order. Okay. We have on our agenda the first item, the deliberation and voting upon the recommended changes by the assessor. And we are doing this again because there is a revised list, because the last list that was presented to us included appeals that were heard last year. So Ross, if you'd like to bring up that list and present it to us.
Yeah, this is Ross. It's just a quick correction. It didn't have appeals from last year. It just was last year's recommended by assessor never got removed from the list. So we just, everybody was just adding into it. So all they did was remove those from the real estate list. And it was only the real estate list that was affected.
I see. So are there any changes to what we saw last time?
Again, just the removal of those that were left on from last year.
I see. Okay. And any questions by anyone?
Yeah, I do have a quick question. So
Yes.
these changes did anyone's taxes go up, or the assessment go up on any of them, or are these all reductions?
There were, and I don't have the list open at the moment, there were a few increases on there.
I'd like to look at that list again.
Yes.
While we're looking at the list, while we're looking at the list, how did we get those recommended by assessor? Means we weren't involved in it. So how did those increases come about?
I'll let the assessor answer that, but I would just point to the fact that the last time we did this, we saw that there were five, I believe the number was five properties where there was an increase due to the fact that during the course of the year, there were changes in their buildings, whether they had a finished basement or added a bedroom. Those were changes that came about during the year as reported to the assessor's office or taken from the building permits or construction that was done. They were not from appeals.
Right. So I understand.
Okay,
so
I can walk through each one if you like.
Yes, let's address Judy's question.
Yeah, there's four properties that had an increase. The first one was 543 South Pine Creek, and that was reviewed at the request of a real estate agent that was listing the house. We added a bedroom, 8 air conditioning, and a patio. 956 Oldfield Road, and I'm sorry, the increase on South Pine Creek was $21,560 in assessed dollars.
Is there a spreadsheet that we can look at as well for those who like to look at things?
Yeah, it was sent out last time, I believe. I
Kathleen,
can
you have your
send
hand
it
up?
again.
Okay.
Kathleen?
I just emailed, it's on the website, but I just emailed everybody a link to it. I just sent the email to BAA. So if you open your email, you should, I don't think I even put a header on it. I just kind of sent it out.
Okay, thank you.
But that's
Wow.
rough.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 956 Oldfield. The owner contacted us and asked us to review the property, and we corrected the bedroom count, bath count, and that increased by $18,130. We had 1092 Uncawell Road. There was a permit for an in-ground pool. It was completed prior to October 1st. Actually, the CO was issued on April 18th of 19, and we didn't have that in for 10-1, so we are asking to add that. The increase is $9,450. And the last increase was 56 Perry Street. This one had work completed prior to the permit being issued. So this is a case where somebody did work without a permit, came in after the fact and got a permit. And this included finished basement area, and it increased the assessment by $5,880. And that all the rest are decreases.
Does anybody need more time?
Carol, this is Kathleen. I'm just trying to figure out procedurally how we do this. Are we rescinding the other vote, or do we just want to, or maybe John can help with that. We voted on them once already with a bigger list, so smaller list.
I had a quick question too.
I didn't understand, Alexis, what were you saying?
So I'm just looking at the list again right now, and I see the name Kathleen D. Griffin, 15 Stony Brook Road. Is this the same Kathleen that's on our report?
This is
I
Kathleen,
think
it
you
is,
broke
yep.
up there, Alexis.
Oh, okay. I just maybe we want to, Kathleen, you probably want to abstain from this if this is grouped in, I imagine.
Yes, I did. Yeah, this is Kathleen. I abstained the last time, and I
Okay.
will abstain this. Yep.
Very good.
Does anybody want to bring this back for reconsideration? Or are we okay leaving it as the last vote? I'm just asking, so I'll ask, does anybody wish to reconsider this vote?
Yes, can you just explain what the process is, like on how these cards get changed? Does the appellant, like Kathleen, just go to the assessor? Like, how does that work?
Ross?
Most of these are, yeah, this is Russ. These are ones where, we've gone out to the property, homeowners call in and say,
Yeah.
my card is incorrect. And we go out and inspect the property and make the card corrections.
So you're the only person who makes that assessment, is that right?
These would have been done by the staff.
How many
And,
staff people are there?
3 that would go out in the field and do these, plus myself.
Okay.
I didn't vote on the last one, so I'm not going to vote on this one. I wasn't present for this vote.
Is that true? I thought all 9 members were present when we did that.
I don't recall voting on this. Because I would have I would have noticed what Alexis brought up. I don't recall that.
Okay. Kathleen, do you recall the date of when we first voted on this? Or Ross, do you have that date?
I believe it was
Kathleen, I think it was May
last
3rd.
Tuesday.
I think, yeah,
Last
Monday or
Tuesday.
Tuesday. I think that's Monday. Let me just look. I think it was May 3rd. Could be wrong. Yes.
I could have left before this vote came on, something possible. Okay.
That was an 8-0-0 vote. We voted on the motor vehicles first, and then the personal property, and then the real estate, because there was a spreadsheet with 3 tabs. We voted on all 3 tabs. And you're right, Judy left. The board took a 10-minute recess at 7:10. We reconvened at 7:27, and Judy, you left at 7:10. So we did this after you left, but all other 8 members were there. It was 8-0-0 for the motor vehicle, 8-0-0 for the personal property, and then 6-1-1 for the real estate. Paulette was opposed, and I abstained.
Okay, this is Harold. So I will ask again, does anyone wish to bring this question up for reconsideration?
No,
No.
I guess
Go ahead, Alexis.
I just had a question, and I'm sure that the chairman can guide me, but I guess how do we vote on a fellow board member's property? Like, how does that work?
Well, my simple answer would be that anyone in the town has the right to an appeal.
Sure.
Or to have their property value decided by the assessor's office. So it sometimes happens that a board member has appealed or their property is adjusted by the assessor's office. So as long as that person is abstaining, I think that there's no issue.
Okay, all right. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, so John?
So if we don't move to rescind and revote on the question in the new spreadsheet, I would assume that everything that's on the current or the spreadsheet that Kathleen set out would still be there, would still have been approved.
That would be my understanding, yes. The original vote and decision stands. Okay,
What were the additions here?
pardon?
What, there were additions to that list? What are the additions to?
No, there were no additions. These are the original 4 properties that were adjusted.
For the 2020 grand list, there were some 19 grand lists that were on the original one.
Right, which was taken out.
That's right, that's correct.
Okay.
I had another question too, just what?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. No, I think the assessor just told, I asked the assessor how he arrives at changing some of these cards, and he said homeowners come to him. Is that the only process? Do other people ever come to him? People on this board, people from other places? I'm just curious how the whole process is.
Right, sometimes it's realtors that come to us and ask us to make changes so that it matches the listing.
Okay. So,
Right.
That's,
like, so it is,
that-
okay.
yeah, 543 South Pine Creek is an example of that.
Were there
So-
any members of this board who came to you to ask? I mean, obviously, outside.
Point of order here. It's not
Yeah.
turning into this vote.
Alexis,
Let's move on. We've already
as a point of
You
order,
voted for it. Let's
These
move
are
on,
not-
please.
these are not pertinent to the discussion, these
Why are
questions.
they pertinent?
You all have the list. This has been voted on. I asked the question of whether anyone wishes to bring this matter back for vote. I'm closing discussion of this. We have a lot to do on our agenda, and I think that your questioning is not appropriate to this this item on the agenda. So I am calling to move to the next item of the agenda.
No,
Paulette, you have your hand up. Paulette, you have your hand up.
yes, I do. I have, but Alexis has the right to ask questions until she's satisfied. We don't.
I
cut
believe
people.
they've been answered. I believe they've been
I don't
answered.
think they have an answer, but that's not why I've been.
Then Alexis, what is your new question?
You know, I was interrupted by Peter who called me out of order. I don't know why, because I'm asking questions. I was just curious, like, you know what, sorry, I'm asking again, even though we voted for this. You know what, I'm sorry that's an issue for everybody. Okay. I was just curious how the changes occurred, and the assessor said they were realtors, homeowners came to him, and I was just curious if other people from the board came to him too, asking for the changes. That's all.
All
I
right.
don't know if it's inappropriate or uncalled for.
Are you satisfied with the answers?
I
He
hear
didn't
the
answer. I asked him the third question. I don't think he answered that.
Would you please repeat the third question?
Did board members from our board, did they come to you asking for changes on some of these addresses, these properties?
No.
Okay.
That's never-
Judy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Alexis for asking these questions because I wasn't here for this vote. And I'm really appreciative that she asked these questions so I can learn a little bit more about this because I was not here. So
I
thank you
understand.
very much, Alexis. I really appreciate all the questions that you were asking because it helped me. Helps me.
And I would say that it would have been appropriate for you to ask the questions since this issue was already voted upon by 8 members of the board. You were not present, so I understand why you wanted to have some questions answered, and hopefully we have answered your questions.
I think there's always room for questions to be asked. I don't think anyone should ever be dismissed for asking a question. I certainly hope that's not the view of this board.
You always have the right to ask the assessor questions. They don't always have to be in this meeting, but I am ending the discussion of this item since no one is bringing it back to the table. So I am going to move to the next item on our agenda, item number 3, hearing of any property owners whose assessments were increased by the recommended assessor changes that was provided on May the 3rd, 2021. And I should have looked, and that's the date when we voted on it. So let me ask the assessor, were there any appeals presented from those, how many, 5? Was it?
This is Ross. There was 5 on the original list, but 1 was from last year, so there's actually only 4, and we had no contact by any of these 4.
Okay. So it appears that there were no property owners that came back after they received their notices. And they did have 7 days in which to come back, and no one did. So they did not see any issues with the letters that were sent to them. So I think we are finished with item number 3.
These are the 4 that we're just talking about.
That's correct.
Okay, 543 South Pine Creek, 956 Oldfield, 1092 Umpqua, and 56 Perry.
Correct.
And the owners got a notice of that and had enough time to contest it and understood that they could contest it within a
That's
certain
correct.
period. Okay,
Oh, I do have a question though.
They had 7 days.
Excuse me. Harold?
Yes,
I have a
yes.
question. So
Paulette.
I just thought of this when Judy mentioned it. They were notified, they were sent a mail, they were sent something in the mail. Right? How do we notify them?
They received a written letter.
And I was sent regular.
First, I would say they probably knew about this because those changes took place during the course of the year. And then when we voted on it, then they have the documentation that shows that we voted on it.
Okay, so they already knew. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So I'd like to go on. Yes, who's speaking? No one? Okay. So let's get to item number 4. Deliberations and voting upon appeals properly before the board. Okay. We have 3 appeals that were requested by board members to be brought back for reconsideration. You all have copies of those appeals, right? Okay.
Yeah.
The first, and we'll do these in order as they appear on the list. The first property is appeal number 523. The address is 2030 Fairfield Beach Road. Who is wishing to bring this appeal back to the table?
Paulette,
John? John has his hand up.
Yes, I'm willing to make a motion to reconsider this appeal, as I believe I was in the majority for this one.
Yes. Is there a second? Alexis seconds. Okay, now I'd like to call a vote to bring this back reconsideration.
Wait, hold on. Kathleen has her hand up.
Harold, this is Kathleen. I think we need to have discussion on the reasons for reconsidering the appeal before we vote on it, so everybody knows why it's back on the table, you know, why it's being requested for reconsideration.
So you believe that we should have discussion before we bring it back to the table?
Yes.
And then we will vote to see if we have a majority to bring it back to the table. Is that correct?
Correct.
This is Kathleen. How we did tonight, and I think that's the approach.
All right, so let me just lay this out, because it's going to be a three-stage process. One, someone is going to request that an appeal be brought back to the table. Two, it will be seconded. Three, there will be discussion. More than 3 steps. 4, it will be voted to bring back to the table. A majority vote will be needed. When it's brought back to the table, all prior voting and decisions are nullified. And we begin to discuss anew the appeal. Then, one moment, Ronnie. Then we will have the discussion, and if there is a vote to change card information or to grant in part, or no further changes are to be made, then we will vote on a decision, whether we want to grant a card change or grant in part, or grant to the requested amount. Now, if there is to be a card change or a grant in part, we will vote on that issue as well before we vote on the final decision, whether there's a new value based upon a grant in part or a change to the card. That will be seconded and voted upon, and then we will vote on the final motion of any changes that are made or the requested value. Does that make sense? Ronique?
I think to make things a little cleaner, I think it's probably, I mean, let me know what you guys' thoughts are, but I think someone brings the motion to the table, someone seconds it, and then whoever brought the motion to the table introduce why they're bringing it to the table, and then you vote to whether you bring it on, and then a following discussion, and then a final vote.
Thank you, Ronique, and that is, I believe, what Kathleen's recommendation was as well. So that's the process we will follow.
I just didn't want to jump down a rabbit hole of full-on discussion before we vote to bring it back on the table.
Right. So we're going to ask the person who brings it back to the table to give their reasons for bringing it back to the table.
So this is
Amendment.
John. My understanding is that we've learned some new information regarding this property since the vote was taken. Just to give a background is that it was a 4-4 tie, I believe, or 4-4-1 when we originally voted on this property. Since then, I believe that there's been some information regarding about it was a planned community with another property, and we feel that there has been, with regard to this, that when they did the calculations and everything like that, the land size taken into consideration was included the road, Fairfield Beach Road. And so with that, I want to bring this back to at least make field card changes that I believe would lower the appellant's value that way, so that it would not include the road as it was set up with another property. And I'm going to ask Kathleen and Paulette, because they are the ones who did most of the research, if they have anything to add or correct to what I said.
Yes, I see your hand up first.
Was that me, Harold? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, go ahead, Paulette.
Paulette,
Okay, but that's the beginning of it. I think we first want to look at the change that the assessor made and see where that places his value as his appraised value. And see where it comes down to. And then I want to look at how that falls in with the comps that we have. New comps that I didn't have first discussed.
We lose.
Okay,
oh, there's
Kathleen,
Kathleen.
you have your hand up?
this is more to the explanation that John gave, but it's a complicated property because it used to be one property, Beach and Creek. The owner who owned both of them turned it into what's called a planned community, which is not necessarily a condo. Each property gets allocated a portion of their property, of the total property. And when that happened, the Creekside property ended up getting half of the road included in their new square footage number when the planned community was created. So even though, I believe based on the conversations the assessor had with Jim Wendt as well as with the town attorney, that it should not be classified as a condo, that the land should be allocated to the individual properties, but that the road, as we do with any other property, should be removed. And the number that's being, recommended by the assessor's office is the number that was on the Creekside lot prior to it becoming a plan. I believe it's 3,080 square feet rather than the 4,351, which is the amount that the A2 survey allocated to him that included the portion that's the road. So while there's no definitive measurement for the road, that's the best guess that we could come up with at this point, would be that it would be the number assigned to the Creekside lot prior to it becoming a planned community. And so that's the number that the assessor has, suggested, and that would be considered a card correction, not necessarily a granting right of the appellant's appeal to the 950 number, but to make the card correction so that he can get that credit this year. Otherwise, the assessor could probably correct it for the 2021 grand list, but if we want him to get the credit this year, we should, vote to put it through. So that's why I would support reconsidering this one to give him that relief this year.
Okay, this is Harold. Does anyone who has not spoken yet wish to comment? Okay. Then I will call a vote. All those in favor of reconsidering this appeal and bringing it back to the table anew, please raise your hand. One, two, I wanted to do a voice vote. We'll take
You want to
a-
do roll call? You want to do a roll call vote?
Yes,
You
a
could just
roll
do
call vote.
unanimously.
Why don't, Harold, I have an idea.
Yes,
Why don't we just do a particular order now, right? You do the roll call now, and whoever's first will be the first one to vote. And then whoever's second after that, you'll remember, and you're supposed to vote. And that way you don't have to do a roll call to spend all that time doing the roll call.
okay, but I will do it alphabetically by first name. So we'll do it, announce the names first. Alexis,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
I vote yes. John,
Yes.
Judy,
Yes,
Kathleen,
Yes.
Paulette,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and Ronnie.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so it's back on the table and it's open for further discussion. John, since you motioned it initially, do you want to continue?
Actually, I'm going to pass it to Kathleen, if Kathleen wants to pick it up with the card correction, to make a motion on the card correction.
This is Kathleen. So I will, let's see if I have all the documentation here, but I'm happy to make that motion. I just want to make sure I have the correct appeal number. Let's see. Is it appeal 523? Okay. So I make a motion to, this is appeal number 523. The property in question is 2030 Fairfield Beach Road. The owner of the property is Neil Edelson. The town's value on the property is currently $1,243,500. And let's see, I will make a motion to make the card correction and reduce the town's appraised value from $1,243,500 to let's see, what is it? $1,177,400 to recognize the card correction in the square footage, reducing it from 4375 to the 3080 square feet.
I will second the motion.
John has seconded the motion. And
And
it's
this is Kathleen,
open for discussion.
Sure. This is Kathleen. If you want me to present it again, but I think, or if anybody had any questions or Paulette had anything she wanted to add about, what we saw or the assessor does in the A2 card, I can, I don't think the comments from Jim Went were included in the online backup, but he did, suggest, Ross can verify this if he's got the comment in front of him, that what Jim Went had said on that.
We're only voting on the card correction now, and then we're gonna vote on the appellant's opinion of value after that, right? Gonna do the
Correct.
card correction first?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, I'm ready to go. If it's just the card correction right now, and then we can talk about the rest of it.
That's
yes,
what
let's get the card correction out of the way.
Yes, that's what I suggested. That's what I explained and described earlier. Okay, any further discussion on the card correction? So all those in favor of the card correction?
Oh, wait, Harold, I think we're going to go with the roll call vote for Kathy.
Yes. Thank you. So used to it since March the 2nd.
Alexis, you have your hand up?
Alexis?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, am I allowed to speak or?
No, we're doing the roll
Oh,
call.
I just had a question about the card correction. Was Mr. Edelson contacted about the card correction?
Yes,
Okay.
I spoke to
And
him.
that is-
You know,
Okay.
being done to the card and why.
And that's Paulette speaking, correct?
Paulette, yep.
Okay, so continuing the vote. Alexis has to vote on the
I
card
vote in
correction?
favor. I vote in favor.
Yes. Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes. John?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes,
Kathleen?
Yes.
Paulette?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And Ronique? It's unanimous. 9 in favor of the card correction to reduce the town's value to $1,177,400. Now, we're going back to the first stage of our motions, where, John, do you want to state what the appellant's opinion of fair market value is and the card correction value? And then we can just open that up for discussion if we have a second.
Helps if I'm off of mute. Yes, I will. All right. So I would like to make a motion to reconsider this appeal and the appellant's value, estimated value, to change the town And this is for, I'm sorry, this is for location 2030 Fairfield Beach Road, owned by Neil Edelson. And I would like to make a motion that we change the town's value to the appellant's estimated value of $950,000 from the town's value of $1,177,400.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Alexis seconds. Okay, and this is open for discussion. Is there any discussion? Paulette?
Yes. I was the one who asked somebody from the winning side to bring this back, and it was, we didn't know that there was an issue with the land, the size of the land at the time. We found that out as we were going through things. So I'm glad that that was able to be corrected. In the meantime, though, I believe that in deliberating the first time, we didn't have that, but also we're looking at some comps here. And we talked about some of the before. We talked about 1690 and 1700 Fairfield Beach Road and what that land value was. At the time, we thought that his land was almost identical to this, but it isn't the case. So they have 5,194 square feet of property at the rest. Their value is 703. His land is less than half the size. So it seems out of whack. If you look at 1492 and 1494 Fairfield Beach Road, which I think the Fazio's group looked at and used that as kind of a landmark or a benchmark rather for properties on the creek side. There's so few of them that are buildable lots, but they did have a sale of a buildable lot in 2019, November 2019, for $700,000. And I believe that's what he used to create values. I think that's what he said he did, used to create values for other properties there. That property is just about a third of an acre. So again, if a third of an acre is worth $700,000 at fair market value, because this property sold for $700,000, then how could something that's 3,000 square feet be worth only $44,000 less, or somewhere around that number? So it seems like things are out of whack as far as values. We're not saying he wants what his neighbors have. We're looking at a fair market value where it's a huge piece of property compared to his, and yet the amount of value for his doesn't seem low enough based on that. We also looked at, and Mr. Edelson was the one who looked at it, and we started to talk about this, but we got cut off the last time, was that, he's on the creek, he has no access to the beach, so he's looking across at the creekside properties coming from the other direction on Old Dam Road and Pine Creek Avenue. Properties there that are still larger than his. Here's one for 0.318 of an acre, 13,841 square feet, valued at $616,400, so valued at less than his, but a much larger piece of property. 73 Old Dam, a little around a quarter of an acre, 542, still much larger than his. And even a property at 35 Old Dam Road, 0.18 of an acre, 7,800 square approximately, valued at 530. It's still bigger than his. South and Pine Creek Avenue, very similar results. Property at 454 Pine Creek Avenue, 4.468 of an acre, 20,000 plus square feet, 754,000. That's a much bigger lot than his. 444 Pine Creek, same thing, quarter acre, 606. 455, almost a third of an acre, 667. So he seems to be on the very high side of what everybody else's values are. And to me, you could say, well, that's Fairfield Beach Road. It's a different neighborhood. Not really. It's a different street. But look at the similarities. They're both on the creek. They're both similar size, similar design streets if you drive on them. Narrow, property, creek side on one side, not, on the other side, just regular old houses. They actually, to me, they're better locations because they don't deal with students. There's not students over there causing problems all year long. It's a much more peaceful environment. So I truly believe that he is aggrieved and he needs some relief for that amount of the property. Now we looked at that comp at 1700 Fairfield Beach Road, and we were talking about that in detail last time we deliberated. And that property, the total value of that property was $1,050,000. People believe that that was not his better. I didn't think so. I see the differences, but a lot of people believe that it was better. Felt strongly that it was very similar to his. It was a good comp because that also sold in the valuation period, a much closer time frame to the October date as opposed to the land that was sold in '99. So looking at that, I think that he does deserve a further consideration and a different value for his land. I think that maybe 900 and change is too low. 950 is too low. But I think that maybe we could try a grant in part if people are interested in trying to come up with a value that would be somewhere in the middle that would make it fair, more evenly distributed.
Paulette, excuse me for interrupting, and then you can continue. I just want to say that I think in order to be efficient in these reconsiderations, I would want everyone who's speaking to have the full time to speak as much as they want. And then someone else can speak, but I'm trying to avoid a debate going back and forth between board members. So I'm going to let Paulette continue with her reasoning for this appeal, and then we will let another person speak so that we don't have the cross-talking and debate that we've seen in the past. Okay, Paulette, you okay with that?
That sounds good.
Okay, Paulette, continue.
So anyway, and then the other thing is that, and it's through nobody's fault, this would be my last point, nobody's fault, but it's just the way it worked out, that because his land was incorrectly sized for the last 5 years, he's paid 25% more taxes than he should have paid. Now, I know we can't go back and change that. I'm not asking to. But I think that if you look at the whole picture, he does have an argument that he's paying way too much and has paid too much. So I think that I feel that I think a grant in part in his case would be appropriate. And I'm basically, I mean, that's if somebody else has to make a comment, that's my comment. Somebody wants to make a comment before we discuss a number of grant in part, I'm okay with that. Whatever you want, Harold, what do you think?
Well, I think if you're bringing up the suggestion of a grant in part, you can make a number, and then as the other people speak, they can make a number, and then we can decide which number we want to go with. Hopefully, we won't have 9 different numbers.
Well, because I feel that it's very similar to the 1690, although it's twice as much land, and they have paid a lot less in taxes than he has. I think that I would like to say that I would be willing to grant in part to $1,050,000 to equalize those two properties.
Okay, anything else? Okay, Catherine, you have your hand up.
And so did Judy. I think I was asking if Paulette, Judy, you okay if I ask a question? Because mine's a question.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. I'd love to see the new Fields card because I have to say with a reduction of 1/3 of his land, which I know there's some benefit to having that road in your square footage for lot coverage and so forth. But I'm looking at his lot go from 4,300 to 3,000, a reduction of roughly 1/3. I'm quite surprised it's only a $66,000 reduction. So
Right.
Could I copy of the new land calculation and the new appraisal?
Excuse me.
This is Ross. It's in the file.
In the
Maybe I
backup.
need
Yeah.
to correct.
It's in the backup.
We're gonna let each person speak.
Thanks, Ross. Okay, I'll look at busy. So
Anything else, Catherine?
no, I'll may have something more, but should be looking at this. Sorry, got it.
All right, Judy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just comment, Paulette presented overwhelming and compelling evidence. Not one comp, not two, but I don't know how many, I couldn't even count. Overwhelming and compelling. And, as I look at this original, the original vote, and I voted for it, I voted for the 950. I'm actually still inclined to be at 950. And however, if and I want to make sure this guy gets, I want to make sure that he's not aggrieved any longer. So I really feel very strongly about the 950, which I originally wanted for him anyway. But if we could not come to an agreement as part of the board, I would compromise just to make sure that he was taken care of. That's it.
Okay,
Paulette, for all of that hard work. Overwhelming and quite compelling, quite compelling. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
anyone else? John, you have your hand up?
Yeah. Paulette, a question to you. That 10 or that 1,050,000, is that the same number, if I'm correct, of what the combined of the 1690, 1700 was for their tax or for their values of the
Yes.
land and that?
Yes.
So you want to bring it to be similar to that?
Yep.
I know we had a long debate about, comparing the houses between the two. With that amount, and that the two properties that we were comparing the appellant to was very nice inside, has been renovated inside and stuff. My only concern about bringing it down to that same property that we debated about is the fact that while it's nicer inside, it may be nicer inside. I haven't seen pictures of what Edelston's property is. The appellant's property is FEMA compliant, whereas, and is also closer to the outlet than what the comparable that we were debating about was.
Okay. Anyone else? Kathleen?
Just a point of information, I think the 1050 was the sale price, John, of the 1690, not the combined town's value of those two properties.
Okay.
Because I think the town's
Yes,
property, it was the sale price of 1090, or that's
Correct.
1690.
I believe
I'm
you're
sorry.
correct.
Kathleen's correct. I thought you meant the sale price of the combined, so my mistake. Yes, that is correct. It's the sale price.
And just to clarify for the audience, $1,050,000 included both properties, although it is tax separate. Okay. Kathleen, Catherine, you had your hand up?
A past history, I always look at these land codes, and again, I was just surprised with only a $66,000 reduction, and I see that now he's being, appraised for the 3,000 square feet, but the pricing had changed. It went from, previously it was $44 a square foot unit, or as it calls, unit price, and now it's $57. So I'm just not sure why he's just not getting a third. Is the difference in that pricing due to he gets a benefit of the land for his lot coverage? Again, I would have expected, he had a reduction of 30%. So I was thinking his land would go from 726,000 to 515,000. So can anybody, is Ross still on there? Could he confirm why it wouldn't be just a straight cut?
Yeah, this is Ross. So what you're seeing there is, the land curve that's been talked about quite a bit. And it reflects the fact that land isn't valued on a linear basis. We don't pick one price per square foot and apply it to everything, because that actually results in worse, more erroneous results when you look at the high end or low end in square footage. So the land is on a curve, and the smaller the land, the higher the square footage. It's the higher the cost per square foot. Similar to a
Okay.
house. You know, if you're building a ranch, it's going to cost you more per square foot than to build a colonial.
And could you give me some insight as to why, and I understand, so what you're saying, I get that. That's kind of what I assumed. Just where does like the $57 a unit go to the $44? Like how's the increase? Again, just the land, like, can you just give me some direction and so I can reconcile that in my head?
I'm not quite sure what you're looking for there.
Directionality of the land curve to go from $57. Is there just like there's actually a curve and a graph that says, at 3,000 square feet, it's going to be 57 and 44. I was just wondering what determines the slope of that line.
There's a table
Okay.
that
And-
the system would look up in, and it's published. That the table's been published out on our website, but it's available. The other thing I'll mention is that it's still a building lot. So you
Agreed.
didn't, right? It's still a building lot, and that's where a lot of the value is coming from. The fact that you can build on it. So you lessened its value, but not proportionately to the size.
This is Harold. I think it's my understanding that it's called a curve. It's not plateaus. It's linear. It's like a thermometer. Okay, so thermometer works on a curve, right? There's not plateaus. Between 50 degrees and 100 degrees, there's a lot of degrees. It's not a plateau. There's a 50-degree plateau. There's a degree plateau, but in between there's a range. So it's not a plateau. It's a curve. Okay, and it is something that all of the properties deal with, and the price per square foot does get adjusted that way. So that, I think, is the way I understand it. That's the way I would describe it. Yes, Paulette?
I want to thank Kath for noticing that, and that was a very good point, and I agree with her. So it looks to me like you decrease the size of his land, but then you increase the price of it. So it really doesn't come out even. And I understand your system. Well, I don't understand your system. I understand that your system is to use a curve. Let me say that. But our job is to look at market value, and market value isn't based on a curve. And so I think Catherine's point is taken that, why did the price go up? Well, because of a curve. However, it doesn't really make sense when looking at market value. So I think that I agree that he needs more relief than 66,000. I don't want to point out different people, but if there's this curve, some people's land goes, it goes up 77,000, somebody else's goes up 100 and something thousand. It's really not close enough. It's too much of a swing. I'm not saying that you don't have the right to use it. I'm just saying that I don't think it's always appropriate. Somebody gets screwed somewhere or another whenever there's a curve on anything. And I just think in this case, this guy has paid more taxes than he's had to for 5 years. Nobody noticed it. And, he's only gotten the $66,000 difference. Does not compensate for what that land, the size of that land, based on a market value issue rather than a curve issue. So that's why I think that's why I made that recommendation to go with a grant in part rather than full, even though I agree with Judy. I think he deserves a 950, but I don't think we have the support for it. And I want to be able to help this man and be fair. So that's why I'm offering that price of the $1,050,000 to keep him in line with the other property, which, by the way, about it not being FEMA compliant, in this case really doesn't make any difference because it's not FEMA compliant. I don't know what their flood insurance is, but I'm sure it's high. Mr. Edelson is FEMA compliant. His flood insurance should be minimal. However, he's now in a high velocity flood zone. That was a reclassification at some point in time from FEMA. His flood insurance is $10,000, and that's only for the structure. It has nothing to do with his contents because he didn't want to pay more than that. So he doesn't insure his contents, only the structure. So it's $10,000. So he might as well not be FEMA compliant. because he's paying that flood insurance like everybody else is who isn't FEMA compliant. So in this case, it's a wash. Normally it would add value. In this case, it really doesn't because of the way that particular street is classified. So it's no benefit for him. And if we look at the price of that 1050 that I mentioned, remember that lot is still more than twice as big as his. So I'm coming up with a value trying to be fair, but I'm not coming to the lowest possible value. If we really wanted to argue by dollars, he's still paying more than that size lot should be valued.
All right, this is Harold. Since you mentioned the combined properties of 1690 and 1700, I'd like to give you my take on that. So this is my statement. The 1700 property is valued at $77,000. Why? Because it is separately adjusted and it is considered a creek lot and is valued at 0.1 or 10% of the value of the property if it had a house on it. The 1690 house has an adjusted value of 0.9. And when the property is sold for $1,050,000, it included both properties. Now, I listened to the deliberations. I also listened to the hearing in detail. And I noticed that I was the one that pointed out that there's some connection between 1690 and 1700. And that was what started the conversation about the land size. No one picked it up before I mentioned it, okay? But my feeling is that the owner at 1690 has a tremendous benefit because the town is valuing that parcel of land that is larger than the parcel that his house is on at $77,000. If it was one parcel of land, he'd be paying more than he's paying for his land now. His assessed value on his land would be higher. Would it be double? No, because he would enjoy the benefit of land curve. His value might be $770,000 or $750,000 versus the $703,000, because his entire property would be valued at a certain number based upon the land curve, which we know goes down as the property gets larger, and that he would no longer have the benefit of a reduction of 10% of value in that land. So he is getting a good benefit because his total land was purchased at one price, but it's more than half the land is valued at a different rate than the land that his house is on. So I don't take the $1,050,000 as gospel for this land, because he enjoys a much larger portion of land for his $1,050,000 than the appellant enjoys with his land, and the value of his land is in line with the value of the comp's land. So I would say that if, the appellant was focused on land. I listened very carefully to the hearing and the deliberations, and his entire argument was based upon square footage of land and his neighbors and across the waterway, across Ash Creek, even looking at vacant lots and saying that, why is this land valued at $6 a square foot, whereas mine is whatever number he came up with. And he was looking at the values of properties that were vacant or of different sizes. And he stated in the hearing that he didn't understand, he didn't get the land curve. All he was looking at was comparing square footage, okay? So I think that what I'm pointing to is my reasons for denying this appeal initially, because I think that we missed the boat in considering the value of the comp, which included 2 parcels of land, more size than his, but more than half of that land was being appraised at 10% of what it would have been if it was the total land. And if it was combined, I'm not saying it would be double, it wouldn't be $1.4 million, but it would be higher than the value that he has now, maybe in a higher 7,000. Because I did look at other Creekside properties of similar size, and that's what their valuations were. They were in the 7s. I'm done. Paulette? I hope this is not a rebuttal. I hope you're presenting new information.
You know what, Harold? It's not a rebuttal. However, you don't get to pontificate about what your thoughts are when nobody else gets to answer back. But I'm not going to bother with rebuttal because I don't want to get in an argument right now. I Mr. Edelson's case. We're looking at a piece of property that is a comp because it's sold. It doesn't matter what that other piece of the lot. You're right. That owner enjoys that. He definitely has the enjoyment of that property much more than Mr. Edelson does. He's got room to run around. He's got room to do whatever, you can throw a wall, whatever. Mr. Edelson has very little foot space left on his property. So indeed, this gentleman with all this good use of his property at 1050, okay, that's much more valuable than Mr. Edelson's, and we're asking for the same thing. So, and it's an actual sales comp. So I don't really have anything to argue about because I think you helped us make our case. So I'll thank you for that. Whether you choose to vote yes or no is your opinion, your business. But I don't see how saying that this other lot is bigger and they've got more use of it hurts Mr. Edelson's appeal when we're asking for the same value for less usable, smaller land.
And also that high velocity flood zone too, and that's a detriment to him for market value. And that's what we're supposed to be thinking about is market value, right?
Right. That's what I thought.
Alexis, you had your hand up?
And just a quick question then, would this, and I heard, full disclosure, I did hear Mr. Edelman's case way back in early March. In the case, this is a condo, correct? I mean, this is a condo, we have to remember.
Well, it sort of is. It's really a planned unit development. It's not a
But
regular
it's
single.
units.
It's just a different setup for it.
Okay.
Any more comments from the board?
This is John. I have a question for Paulette about this. So it is the whole planned community thing. Can you explain that a little bit more for my understanding? It's a planned community, but it's not. It's a condo, but it's used as a house, separate houses. I'm not.
Yeah, I can explain it. I can try to explain it. When the woman who lives across the street owned both parcels, the creek side and the water side.
Okay.
In order to get permission to build that house, I believe that she had to go at it in a different way than just being able to build just another single family on that property. So she started out as a condo, permission to build. But when they did their incorporation, there's all kinds of documents you have to do to incorporate a condo and everything, legal documents. It's now, they were able to call it a planned community. So in a planned community situation, a little different than a condo, is that each individual owner of a building also owns their own land. And that now in this case, it's only 2 people. Sometimes it's a development of 50 houses. Each owner only has the right to use the property that their building is on. They can't use the other person's property. There's no common property. In a condo, everybody owns their building, but even right behind your house is common property. They call it limited common use so that somebody could walk on it. Nobody ever does, but they could. But there's common areas that everybody can share. So if there was a gazebo on a piece of land, everybody has the right to use it because it's commonly owned by the entire group. But in this case, there isn't. She could have something on her property he has no access to and no right to use, and he had a dock on his, not use it unless he gave her permission to use it. So that's where it's different. You own your own land. In a condo complex, the land is held by all the owners as one big group.
Okay, thank you.
But not
Kathleen, you have your hand up?
Kathleen, I mean, Ross can speak to this as well. I talked to the town attorney, but my understanding was that there could be common property in a planned community. In other words, you could have a shared road, you could have other things that you do share together. But in this particular case, this particular planned community, there is no common area. So it's 100% owner one side versus the other side, and that's why each of them owns a portion of the road, right? Because even the road was allocated between the two properties. It wasn't like that was considered common property for the thing. So they don't, from what Paulette, or what she said to me, Mr. Edelson does not have beach rights with this property. You know, they potentially could have done that, but I guess they didn't do that. He has no right, you know, there is no common property in this planned community, but planned communities may have common property. That, Ross, is that accurate, or?
This is Ross. I believe the way it was worded was that the common elements were limited to each owner. So, you know, unlike a condo, there is land associated with each unit. What Jim pointed out is that for coverage purposes, it's still considered one parcel.
And just a minute, Paula. And this is what allows us to build the house on such a small property? Or was it because there was a prior structure on the property that this house was built on that footprint? Ross.
This is Ross. I'm not sure. I can look back and see what was there. I'm not sure what actually gave them that ability. I think the variance is in the file.
I think we did see some information that there was a tear down on this property before of 900 square feet.
I believe that's true.
Okay. Yes, Paula.
You know, I don't want to get everybody agitated, but I just want to say that I do not feel that bringing the town attorney into this discussion or even into this process of looking these things up is appropriate. He is not a real estate or land attorney. That's not what he does. There's somebody in his office who does it. He doesn't do it. And by the way, because we don't answer to the town, we do not answer to the select woman, we do not answer to anybody else except somebody in state level. We do not need his permission. We do not want to hear what he has to say because it's immaterial to what we're doing. That was brought up solely to confuse people and let them think that, well, if we wanted to, we could use each other's property. That's not what is happening here. That is not what was done. And it's an inappropriate statement for this discussion. I'm tired of hearing little things like that snuck in at the last minute of, well, they could. Somebody said. That doesn't matter. We don't have that information. We have the information that was presented. That's what we have. I do not believe that the town attorney is correct, and I don't believe he has any business in this. If you wanted to ask somebody, why didn't somebody who asked the town attorney call the attorney who drew up the documents and ask them what it was? They're the ones who prepared them. And those are the ones that are legally filed. And it does not say in there that that can happen.
All right. Does anyone?
Kathleen.
Yes, Kathleen.
Is there a motion on the table? There is not, right? So
There is not a motion on the table yet. Paul mentioned a possibility of a grant in part. John, did
Yeah.
you? And
I made the motion to grant what the appellant had asked at 950, but there's been no amended motion yet.
Correct. And we do have a new town value of $1,177,400. And I did mention earlier that if someone felt that there was another number for a grant in part, as long as we don't have 9 of them to consider, that I will hear them. Right now, we only have one suggestion of a grant in part to $1,050,000. So $1,050,000, yes. And that was made by Paulette. So Paulette, if you wish to make that motion. You
Yes,
can.
yes, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to grant in part the new value to $1,050,000.
Is there a second? Alexis raised her hand for a second. So now we will vote on the grant in part to $1,050,000. All those in favor of Alexa? I'm
Are we
sorry.
doing roll?
Kat-
The
Yes,
roll call?
yes, Catherine. Kathleen, did you have your hand up as well?
No, this is Kathleen. I was just gonna say roll call. I wasn't sure, but you got it.
Yes. So I'll do a roll call vote. The motion to grant in part to $150,000 has been raised. It's been seconded. All those in favor of granting? I'm sorry. Yes, I'll do the roll call vote. I'm sorry. Alexis, how do you vote?
The vote in favor?
Catherine, how do you vote?
Yes.
This is Harold. I vote yes. John, how do you vote?
No.
Judy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Kathleen, how do you vote?
No,
Paulette, how do you vote?
Yes,
Peter, how do you vote?
I thought so.
No.
Say again?
I'm sorry, Harold, that was my computer. Siri got on. I'm sorry. That was.
Peter, how do you vote?
I voted no.
And Ronique, how do you vote?
Yes.
The motion to grant in part to $1,050,000 is granted. The vote is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favor. 3 opposed. The appeal is granted to $1,050,000.
No, that was the amendment to the amendment now. Or we voted for the amendment. So now it becomes we have to vote on the amendment. So it's either if we vote yes, then we go to it becomes 1,050,000. If we vote no, it stays at 1,177,400.
Well, we've just voted to grant, to
Amend the
amend
motion.
to $1,050,000.
Correct. And now we need to vote on the new motion,
The new
motion as
motion,
amended.
the
or
original,
the amended motion, original
Amended
motion
motion.
amended.
which is the 950 versus the 1,050,000.
No, it's the 1,177,400 versus the new amended amount.
Another step. Okay.
So
All those in favor?
roll
Of-
call.
The amended, yes, I'll do the roll call. Just wanted to make sure that we know what we're voting on to amend to $1,050,000 from the $1,177,400. Alexis, how do you vote?
Is this just how we voted? I'm a little confused.
Well,
Voted to
We just voted on I just
John?
thought we voted on the amendment of going,
Correct. We voted on the amendment to change the requested value from 950 to grant in part, or basically we changed the 950, okay, to 1,050,000.
And now
That's
we're,
right.
yes, and now we're voting on the new value based upon the car correction, which is now the town's value versus the amended value of $1,050,000.
Okay, all right, thank you, guys. Okay, I will vote in favor of that.
Everybody clear on that?
Yep.
Okay. Then, so the vote now is for granting the $1,050,000 versus the town's value of $1,177,400. All those in favor of I'm going to do a roll call. All those in favor of granting the amended value, raise your hand. Alexis,
Yes, I vote in favor of the amended value.
Catherine,
Yes.
I vote yes. John,
No.
Judy,
Yes.
Kathleen,
No.
Paulette,
Yes.
Peter,
No.
that was a no.
No.
And Ronique.
Yes.
Just a moment. Ronique, what was your vote again, please?
Yes.
Sorry,
Harold, do you want Kathy to call the vote?
I lost track here on my little scribble sheet.
I have it.
Yes, Kathy, please call the vote. I'm sorry.
Okay, so the vote on appeal number 523 was to grant in part to $1,050,000 with a vote of 6 in favor, 3 opposing. Yes?
This is Harold.
That's incorrect.
Just to correct Harold, that was $1,050,000.
Yes, $1,050,000. And the grant in part is granted. The vote is 6-3. The no votes were John, Peter, and Kathleen. Correct with everyone?
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry, I was having difficulty. I lost my place. All right, moving on to the next one. This is appeal number 227. The owner is Ken and Elizabeth Davey. The location is 1810 Fairfield Beach Road. The request, I'll just give the requested value and then I will move from there. The requested value is $1,173,500. The town's appraised value is $1,538,400. And I, Harold Zawadzki, have been asked by members of the board who are not in the majority vote to bring this appeal back for reconsideration. And I've chosen to do so in a bipartisan manner. to bring this appeal back for reconsideration. I have no new information pertaining to this appeal, but I am going to make a motion to reconsider this vote. Do I have a second? Alexis seconds. Okay. And it's open for discussion. Paulette?
Yes, Earl, thank you. I was the one who I think asked to have this looked at again. Originally, this gentleman's land was considered beachfront property, so it had a code that related to beachfront, which would then make the property much more valuable than it would be, than a regular creekside property would be. So, so it needs to have a neighborhood change. I think Ross has done that. I don't know if it's in the file or not, but he's made a change back to whatever that zone is on that side of the street. Was it WP something, or Ross can tell us. Ross, can you tell us what you did, please? Ross?
Yeah, I'm here. I just got to
Okay.
get to the card. I think it's in the file.
Paulette, what was his reason for requesting the card?
He was requesting,
What-
he requested a change because he felt that he's on the creek side. And the only thing he has is a 3.5-foot wide strip of property that takes him from Fairfield Beach Road, on the beach side, down to the water. He can't, it's not a piece of property that holds much value in that it's not like other beachfront properties. He doesn't have a view. He doesn't have an expansive beachfront to do anything with. He doesn't even really have room to put a beach chair and a table there and an umbrella if he wanted to sit there. All he can do is use it to walk from the edge of the property on that side of Fairfield Beach Road to the water. When he gets to the water, he walks right into the jetty or breakfront, whatever you want to call it. So he really doesn't have use of the property. It's just he can walk down there, which is something. I mean, it does have some value, but certainly shouldn't qualify him to be considered for his whole lot to be considered as beachfront, because it truly isn't. It affords him nothing that beachfront property does except gives him a walkway. And so that was his reason for us to bring back his appeal.
And this is Harold. So I believe that he wanted to change the coding to a PC4 from what he had, which was originally a beachfront coding of a WP8.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's what he wanted.
And so that was his request, and I believe that was done by the assessor's office. That change was.
Office.
Yeah.
But I have some questions about that. So that's why I wanted to ask the assessor to give us the numbers. I couldn't get it up on the screen fast enough.
Okay, I have a lot of hands up. Can we pause to hear from Catherine, and then Peter, then John, and then Renique?
Yeah, fine. Good idea.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I see here that the assessor said the FB8 classification was intentional because it does give him beach access, but they reflected a 0.10 condition code. They reduced the overall land value by 10% to reflect the fact that they're not a true beachfront property. So I would also like to see the property valued as a true PC4 and perhaps allocated out. The only part that I could even conceive of valuing at the FB8 level is the square footage of the strip. And the rest of the property, I'd like to see valued at FC4. Sorry, PC4, Creekside with water access. If Ross could do that, that would be my request.
Yeah, this is Ross. What I did when I changed this to a PC4 is I modeled it after 1790, which is 2 houses down and has the very similar sort of strip to the beach. So I use that as a model and changed the land line to match that property.
John, you have your hand up?
And Ross, in doing so, you increased the condition to 1.2, it looks like on the card.
Right, it changed from the FB to a PC4, and the condition went to a 1.2.
From a 1.0. Correct.
It was actually when it was FB, it was a 0.9, I believe.
Okay. So actually, from what it looks like, by doing the PC4 and modeling it after that with the condition of 1.2, did the value go up? Because it looks like it's at 1563, and prior to that, it was, let me just see here. What was the, Paulette, you might have the original value.
What I have here is the town. Go ahead.
1,538,400. Changed it to PC4. Changed it to 1,542,800. So yes, it did go up, and that was going to be my comment.
It did go up a little bit.
Yeah, and that's not acceptable. So what is, Catherine, did you have, I think what Catherine was saying seems to
Yeah,
make
my
sense.
request was, could we, how much of the value is the strip? How, like, what is the acreage of that strip? If it's 3.5 or 4 feet long? I'd like to see it valued all at, what would be the value of the strip at the FB8 and the rest of the land at the PC4?
That's going to take me some time to calculate because I've got to see if I can just blow this map up enough to read it.
All right.
I don't know.
While you're doing that for Catherine, Ronique had his hands up as well.
No, I was going to bring up exactly what John was saying because I noticed that before when I was reviewing this before all the deliberations, because it did go up, and to go to the FB4, I was just surprised that the condition factor went to 1.2. But I do like Catherine's rationale of looking and piecing it that to the PC8. So I do like where she's going with that. So I'm curious to see what those calculations are as well.
All right. This is Harold. I'd like to bring us back to a point that we often discuss, and that is what the appellant paid for their property. And in July of 2019, the appellant paid $1,520,500 for this property. And even if you didn't adjust for the time difference, it's still quite close to what the town's value had it at. Also, I would point out that this was another instance where square footage was the comparison, and that's how the appellant got to a value of $1,173,500, which is what, $250,000 less. No, almost $450,000 less. So I don't know that square footage calculation getting him down to $1,173,500 is sufficient justification to move from what his purchase price was in 2019. So I'm not in favor of granting the requested value even as it's being adjusted. Paulette?
Yes, I agree with you, Harold. I think that the appellate's value that he put here, his opinion of value is too low, especially since what he paid. But I also believe that when a property is valued a certain way by the town, it should be correct. So in this case, I agree with Catherine that the piece of land, it was incorrectly coded. It shouldn't be coded as beachfront because it isn't. So the piece of land that takes him to the beach, which gives him very, very limited, it doesn't have really use of it. He has the ability to walk down there, which is something. I mean, he doesn't have to drive over to the public beach. So I think that has value, but certainly it doesn't qualify the whole property to be beachfront. By changing it to the proper code for that side of the street, I find that I don't understand how it could have gone up. We put him in a category where the land is less valued. So then we jacked up from a 0.9 to a 1.2, and that just brought it up. Why? And I'd like to know why that went up like that.
Okay, let me point out, I did listen to the hearing and the deliberations as well. And I'd like to point out that I was the one who identified the property 2 doors down that had the pathway. Catherine is shaking her head, she remembers. And I asked the assessor why the appellate's property was coded differently than the other house 2 doors down. So him using that as the model to standardize or have a fair and equitable coding of these properties is the approach that he took. And that was what was requested by the appellant. So I hear what you're saying, that you feel that his request is too low. And I think that you agree that the way he calculated that was an insufficient reason. That's why you think it's too low, perhaps. But also, he did purchase it for $1,520,500. It's 4 months before the valuation period. And as we've heard many times before by many of the members of the board, that the sales price is a good indicator of the value. Purchase price is a good indicator of value. Let me put it that way. Yes, Catherine, excuse me.
And I agree with the sale price. I saw that. I was listening today to the deliberations and the hearing because I wasn't there the first time around, and that's why I was nodding, because it was fresh in my memory. And I agree. I mean, the $1.5 million is what he paid. It was not brought up in the original deliberation, so I thought that was interesting. Second comment, I think you're right. You know, the property a couple of doors up, they should be modeled consistently, but I think we have a chance to model them properly, not just if one's wrong and one's more wrong, to pick the one that's less wrong. I think we can come up with a better model. And what does strike me here, also with the sale price, is his land assessment has more than doubled since the purchase. And I'm sure that, you know, when we purchase our properties, taxes are part of our mortgage payment, and a big part. So, you know, to see his assessment on his land go more than double is, I think, something needs to be adjusted. So I'm curious, you know, the numbers may not work up in his behalf, but I feel if they're based on a better calculation, and I'm comfortable kind of voting for the way it was calculated than the number. So I appreciate everybody's patience and Ross's patience in working through my calculations.
Yeah, this is Ross.
Sorry,
Catherine,
yes?
I'm going to need a little help on how you want this coded.
I was just curious if he has a 4 foot, how much square footage does he?
I did that. So let me walk you through it. So
okay.
I come up with 860 square feet. So I subtracted that off the square footage of the first land line. I changed it to PC4, condition of 0.9. But on the second land line, do you want that as square footage or acreage? And then what condition would I put on that?
Well, why don't we just start with what is it if it's just what a property would be on that side? I know you have your land curve, but what's
Right,
the,
but the problem with that is if I just put it in, it's going to assume it's a building lot and it's going to, have an astronomical value. So
okay,
it can't be just put in with a condition of, 1 or 0.9. I mean, I'll just tell you what happens if I do that.
well, no, I
At
get
a
what you're,
condition of point,
what
if
if
a condition
the,
of 0.9, that 860 square feet comes in at 754,000. So, that obviously doesn't make sense.
no, what does the first line come in at for the PC4? And that would be at how many square feet for his building lot?
8,632.
Okay, and what does that come in if you do the PC4 and the 0.9?
That landline comes in at 807,200.
I cannot remember the details, but I do know that we as a board had discussed, boy, there should be some value given to that walkway. So instead of, so right now his land without any value given to that walkway is 807.2 versus the 1086. So a reduction of 1086 and 807. I mean, that's a reduction of 280,000. And I'd love to hear some ideas on now what if we just valued the whole thing as a PC4? And Kathy got her hands up.
Kathleen has her hand up, yes.
So this is Kathleen. So Ross, what if you put a 0.1 on that beachfront as opposed to a 0.9? That get it to about $83,000 for the beach access?
So the way it was and change it from 1.2 to 1.1?
No, do the PC4 the way so that the 807 and then take whatever that square footage is of the beach access and instead of making it a 0.9 of an FB8, make it a 0.1 or something, 10% of that. If you said if it was a 0.9, it was 754,000. So I'm guessing
Right.
at a 0.1, it'd be somewhere around $85,000 to $90,000 for that strip.
Yep.
And then
It comes in at 83,800.
Right. And then you add that to that.
Sorry.
This is sort of the opposite of what we do with the beachside lots that have creekside access. We put the beachside house at an FB8. We put the PC4 with a 0.1 on the creekside lot because it's not a buildable lot, but it has value and they can use it for something. And in this case, the beachfront piece is more valuable than a small pathway on the creekside, but at least it provides, some. And look, I'm having a hard time because he paid $1.5 million, right? I just know that it was a private sale and it wasn't on the market. So perhaps he did overpay. That's the only way I can, even remotely justify, but he did not say that in his hearing. He didn't bring up that he paid $1.5 million for it. So that's really hard to, it was, it looks like he had another property on the beach already. He sold it, bought this one, probably one that he had his own. So without a listing in the market, without any pictures of the inside, we don't know. But that's what I'm, that potentially would bring them down about 100. It might make sense, but not to the 1.1.
Paulette, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just had a question. I'm looking at, I know that doing it at a 0.1 is a huge reduction, but the other way is ridiculous too. If you put it at 0.9 or whatever. But I guess I'm thinking, do we really believe that being able to walk on a 3-foot path to the water to put your toe in, you don't have any access to do anything else on it, doesn't really afford you the use of it, is worth $75,000. For that, I'll drive to the beach where I can sit. It's just a walkway. So I think I was wondering what Catherine said, it kind of was interesting to me too. What if the whole thing was coded as a PC4? What does that come up? What does that come to?
John, you have your hand up? John?
This
You're
is
on mute.
John. So Paulette, if you want to see what it looks like as a PC4, in the file, Ross has put that in like a draft card, and that is on page, is it 26 and 27? That he has it there. So the thing is that I think what Ross did with this one, actually, if you take a look at page 24, that has the updated part where he has PC4 for both. Okay. But what changed is the condition factor. Actually, Ross, did you put it in two ways? One with the strip being 0.04 and then a second one with it being put in as two lines separate? Because I see on page 24
You
here.
lost me a little bit there, John. So you want the first line the way it is
No.
right now that for
Well, I'm-
Catherine
I'm-
at 86.
What I'm questioning is that it looks like you have two mock-ups of field cards right now in the file. Okay, and what it looks like is that you're giving two breakouts. One on page 24 where that strip of land is not counted, okay, and that gets put in with the house land, I guess you could say. And then on page 26, it looks like you have the land as a PC4 again, but you broke it out between the strip and the house.
Yeah. Give me just a sec to refresh my memory on this.
Yeah.
There's a survey map on page 22.
Mm-hmm.
And it indicates that the total area is 10,935 square feet. This is on the left-hand side below the grid. It indicates area in right-of-way is 1443. I was assuming or presuming that was the road, half of the road that's indicated on the map. But the map, if you calculate the square footage based on the dimensions that are there, I can't get to the 1443. I get close, but I can't get quite to it. I can't determine where that came from. And the right-of-way is not labeled on the map itself. So I couldn't find that 1443 and confirm that it was the road, but it makes sense that it is. So if you go to the card on page, I think it's 24.
Yeah.
Right, on 24, that 9,492 square feet is the 10,000 square feet I mentioned before, less that 1,400 square feet or so of right-of-way. I didn't split it to two lines because the amount over 9,375 square feet was so small, it wouldn't register on the second line as acreage. So I decided just to leave it there so that it wasn't lost.
Okay. So then what is on page 26? What happened there?
That was the card that I had done before.
Okay.
Before the survey map was found, or the as-built, and that's at the 10,000 square feet. So that's 9,375, and 0.04 is the 1,400, 1,500 or so square feet.
Okay. Of beach access.
No, it doesn't break out that strip at all. It just treats it as one parcel.
Okay, got it. Okay, so Paulette, really on page 24, that's what it would look like at PC4, but Ross bumped the condition up from a 0.9 that I think, or was it a 1.0? With the FB8, he put it to a 1.2, I believe. Is that correct, Ross? Am I reading that right? With the
That's correct.
PC4? And that,
And I did that.
Go
And I
ahead.
did that to match 1790.
So 1790 has that 1.2 condition as well.
Yes.
And that,
I'm sorry, go ahead,
Go-
John.
as I say, so and Ross, is it correct to say that the one, in your opinion, I guess I have to say opinion because I don't know, if that's the way it was modeled, but that 1.2 instead of like a 1.0 or a 0.9 is
You broke up there a little bit, John.
access. Okay, so what do you know why it's a 1.2? What makes it a 1.2 versus a 1.0 or a 0.9?
That's where we felt it brought in the values accurately.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead, Paulette.
So going back to making it similar to, what was it, 1790? Is that the property we're looking at?
Mm-hmm.
They have a 12-foot strip. So it's 4 times the wide as his. So I don't think that putting it in the same category is correct. And I don't really understand why we had to bump it up to 1.2. First, you take down the value by putting it as a PC4 instead of a beachfront property, and then we jack up that other number so we get more money. So I don't really see why we're doing what we're doing. Why couldn't we leave it? I think I like Catherine's way of saying it, where we took the 8632 square feet and put it down to make the value 807,200. And then we take that little strip and take it down, like Kathleen said, to a 0.1, giving it a value of 74,000 and change, which I thought was too much at first, but now when I look at it, I could live with it. And that would take him down to, I think, a much more appropriate value for that land. So I would,
What would you, this is Harold, what would you say the total value of the property should be?
well, the land's only I'm looking at. I'm not looking at the home. I'm just
Well,
looking
let's
at,
look at the total value of the property. What
Well,
do
we
you
could,
think the total value of the property should be?
well, I gotta look, well, unfortunately now, I'm not on that screen anymore. There's something screwed up the computer, so,
Because he believes his value is 1,100,000 and, what's the number? $1,173,500.
and
So
that's what. So,
what do you think the value of the home should be?
well, without me having to go through the whole computer screen again, could somebody, because I'm not on that screen anymore, and it would take you too long to get back to it. What was the value of just the land? Just give me the value of the land. Please.
Have we settled on a value for the land based upon the corrections that were made?
No, excuse me, the value that the town assigned the land is what I'm looking for.
Yes.
1,084,300.
Okay, so I would want to change that piece then to more in line with what Catherine was saying. And Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that what you were saying? I don't want to put words in
No,
your mouth.
You are, and I wanted to support, I thought Kathleen's approach to put the 0.1 and, do the flip. I thought that was very consistent. I just don't know what that number came out to be.
If I'm
Well,
not mistaken.
This is your appeal, so you need to say what it should be.
I'm getting there, Harold.
So if we confirm, I know the landline would be a 0.9 condition on a PC4 for 8,632 square feet, would be 807,200. But for
Right.
the 860 square foot access path as a FB8 at a 0.1 condition, I don't have that number.
Right, I think it's around 77, but I'm not sure.
This is Ross.
would have to-
On the A2 survey on page 22, it says the area of the 3-foot strip wide is 1164 square feet on the A2. I'm assuming that 3-foot wide refers to the beach access strip. If you look in the, in the key on the
Yep.
left-hand side, total area 10,009. The area in the right-of-way, which is probably the street, is 1443 because they actually own that path, so that's not a right-of-way. The 3-foot strip is 1164. And then, the floodplain and the area for zoning. So they took the strip out for zoning because we heard in zoning that they don't include the beach access strip when they look at lot coverage. So that makes sense that strip is 1164 according to the A2.
Well, but this is Harold. Ross mentioned that he could not define exactly what impact the road right away had. So possibly that strip at the 1,100 plus square feet includes that strip going across the road as well. So I think that's why he came up with the number of 850 square feet, subtracting out what he feels the pathway across the road would add to it. Is that correct, Ross?
And this is Ross. I believe that number on the survey for the strip includes some of the road.
Yes, that was my understanding.
So, I mean, I can tell you how I came up with my number. If you go to the survey, it's that piece is 3.6 feet wide. And if you look on the left side of the card where the first part of this strip is depicted, I'm just blowing it up for myself here. You'll see that there's a measurement of 238.96. I compared that to the GIS and came up with about 239 feet on the GIS, excluding the road. So I made the assumption that 238 excluded the street, the road. But I am making some assumptions.
Paulette?
So if we take that strip, just to finish up then, if we take that strip and put it at a 0.1 factor like Kathleen had mentioned earlier, Ross, what number does that come up to? What dollar amount does that come to?
This is Ross. I meant to give that to you. It is 83,800, and so the total land is valued at 891 even.
Okay. Okay, then doing it that way, I think is fair. And I realize that he paid $1 million, whatever, 5 and change. But I'm not arguing that his market value is that it shouldn't be what he paid. What I'm arguing is that, and what he's saying is that the land is incorrectly coded by the town, and so he wanted that adjusted. And I believe that when you see something's wrong like that, I believe that it needs to be corrected. And so I'm ask Catherine because she was doing the numbers, but I would be okay with that number based on the way Russ just described it for the two numbers, 8072 and then 85.8, bringing it to 891 in total for the land, just the land. I'm not talking about the house.
Do you want the total value?
Yeah, if you could, that'd be good, Russ.
1,345,100.
Okay. And I'm pretty much done at that. I could be satisfied with that. I think he'd be satisfied with it, just to make the land, just to value the land the way it should be valued. That's all.
So
Catherine,
this is Harold. I believe we have at this stage to vote to bring this back to the table. Is that correct? Because I don't believe that we brought it back to the table yet.
oh, I thought we did.
No, I think we were just talking about reasons to bring it back to the table.
Okay.
We do have a number in mind that that was discussed. John? You're muted.
Okay, if we do decide to bring this back to the table, which it seems like there may be support for, I do have another question for Ross with the numbers on the card because something doesn't look right to me, but we can bring that up later.
Okay. So I will make a motion to, I think we need to vote to bring it. I made a motion, it was seconded to open it for discussion, and now we're going to vote to bring it back to the table. Alexis, how do you vote?
Can you just repeat the motion again?
The motion is to bring it back to the
Oh, that's
table
it.
for
Okay.
consideration. That will wipe out the
Got
previous vote.
Wasn't sure there was a number here.
Started.
Okay. I vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Okay. Bear with me. Too many papers. Oh, God. Catherine, how do you vote to bring it back to the table?
And confirming that it was denied before. So I'm not giving anything up. I will bring it back to the table.
Yes, for Catherine. Harold, I will bring it back to the table. I motioned it. John,
Yes.
Judy,
Yes.
Kathleen?
No,
Oh,
no,
Paulette,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Ronit,
No.
motion is carried. The vote is 7 in favor, 2 opposed. Kathleen and Ronit opposed. So it is brought back to the table. And we have a request.
Well, we need to make a motion, Harold, now.
Yeah, I make
to
a
go to
motion.
Go ahead.
I make a motion to grant the requested value of $1,173,500. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
John seconds. Okay, so just to kick it off, the town has a value of $1,538,400. The requested value is $1,173,500. We've had some discussion regarding the card correction. Has that card correction be done, or do we need to vote on the card correction?
I think we need to vote on the card correction, don't we?
Kathleen?
Yes.
yeah, this is Kathleen. I don't think it's a I don't know that it's a card correction because I think the assessor recommended the value using the PC4. So I mean, Ross, if you think, let me see if I can explain this right. Often when we look at card corrections, it's because something needs to be removed or that was wrong on the property on the card, right? Or in this case, I don't know that it was wrong. I think the gentleman just wants his coding switched around. So, and I think, you know, the assessor may think that the value on this property is appropriate. And if our card corrections are, you know, if we voted as a card correction, I think it needs to be voted as an appeal and not as a card correction. I guess that's what I'm saying. Unless Ross feels that property was erroneously valued by, you know, during the appeal process. But I think those codes were intentional to put him at that value. And the recoding was also intentional. But that's how I feel about voting it as a, you know, because we get in that slippery slope of what's a card correction and what's not, right? I don't know that this is our intention.
However, my stated town value has changed from that card correction. So I need to state the corrected town value based upon that card correction that was made by the assessor. So where do I find what that number is?
No, this is Harold. Nothing's been changed because he can't change the grant. This is Kathleen. He can't change the grand list after January 30th. He can't make that change. The only people who can make that change is us. So it really hasn't been changed. He was giving us scenarios with the changes, right? He gave us one scenario with scores. Now he's given us a scenario based upon our request to come lower. So, you know, and it probably puts him in an uncomfortable position, but, you know, you know, what is a card correction or not? If the assessor goes out and looks at the property and says, yes, this is overvalued, it needs more depreciation, then I feel that's like recommended by assessor card correction. In this case, I mean, you can ask him whether he thinks the property is overvalued or not, but I don't want to go down that slope of assuming that it is wrong if it's not.
I understand what you're saying because we are voting on changes that affect the 2020 grand list, and any car corrections will take place for the 2021 grand list. Yes, Alexis, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, Alexis Harrison speaking. I kind of took some pause when Kathleen said would the assessor be uncomfortable? That's not our decision. That's not why we make decisions or how we make decisions. So I hope she can strike that from the record because I don't really think that's a fair thing. We're here representing the taxpayer. Can I finish, please, Kathleen? Please.
I'm trying to avoid, any of these side debates and stick with the.
It wasn't a side debate. It was a comment on a comment, and I think it was relevant. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's been addressed. Paulette?
Yeah, so Harold, I just want to get straight in my mind what we're doing. So now we've voted to bring it back to the table, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So now, because we're not doing a card change, which I understand why. So now, instead of just voting between the town's value and his value, don't I have to, like, if I want to change it to what Ross said it would be based on what we discussed, don't I have to make a motion to grant in part?
Just like you did before. Yes, you can follow the same procedure as before.
Okay, so then I guess I should be.
Before you do, John said that he wanted to speak after the vote.
Sure. Yep.
I want to ask Ross, because I'm looking back again at page 24 of what with the PC4, if it was a PC4 location adjustment. And I notice under the location adjustment, Ross, it says 1.85. And I don't think we've had any type of location adjustments because I pulled up a couple other ones nearby that are PC4, and I don't see any other location adjustments that are there other than 1.0. So was
this
there?
Is Ross, John.
Yep.
John, it's simply a printing error on the card.
Okay.
The cards initially were not printing the adjustment code, even though it was there and being used.
Okay.
It was simply not being displayed on the printed card, and that was corrected.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know if that was so even though it wasn't being displayed, that was being in the calculation, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. That's what I wanted. That clarifies my question. All right.
Okay, Paulette?
So I guess then it's time to make that motion, right? Yes, it is. Okay. So I guess I'd like to make a motion to grant in part the amount of $1,345,100, which reflects the numbers that Ross gave us based on recoding and using the little strip of land at a 0.1, which was somebody else had recommended, taking the whole property value for the change we're going to make to 1,891, I believe. So the land value would change to 891, but the total value changes to 1.345100. And the reason I'm comfortable with that is because I think that strip of land has value, and I think that a value of in the $80,000 plus range is fair, since it's really not a usable piece of land except to walk up, and it doesn't give him the kind of access that another piece of land on the beachfront would. So that's why I'm making that motion.
I'll second that. Judy?
We have a second. Okay, it's open for discussion. Kathleen, hand up. You're muted.
This is Kathleen. I don't know what it does to 1790. I don't know if we care to know what it does to 1790, but I'm struggling with the sale price on this property being very close to the reval product, and that's bothering me. So, and I just want to make sure, that this value is going to work for other properties, because sometimes we decide we want to do something a certain way and we realize, whoops, this doesn't make sense going down into other properties. And that's my concern. If you put a 0.2 on it, he's probably closer to his sale price. Does that work for the other properties or not on the beach, with beach strips to get them pretty close if they've sold, that 1790 sold in 18. So that has a sale on it as well. So just little slippery when we don't have sales data supporting the card changes. That's where I struggle. I'd rather have the sales data there to show it. And the only sales data we have is his sale.
Yes, Paulette?
The time that that house was sold, I understand about the sales data. I'm one of the first people to argue that that's the number it should be because it's a market value. However, again, let me say it again. It was the wrong value on the land. It was coded incorrectly. That man didn't know that when he bought the house. I'm sure he didn't understand. You know what? It may have been a different code then. Who knows what happened during this reval? But whatever happened, his land value shot up because he was incorrectly coded, I believe, after he purchased the house, now that I think about it. So it's a mistake made by the system that was used. I'm not going to blame anybody, the system that was used. So putting him at this value brings him in line with where he should be based on that strip. Now, 1790, why do we care what happens to 1790? She didn't come for an appeal. And by the way, her strip of land is 12 feet wide. That gives her room to put a chair, an umbrella, a table, whatever she wants to do on it, and still have room to walk. He doesn't have that. He has no use. She has use of that 12-foot strip of property. So if her property is more valuable than his, there's a reason for it. It has much more use than his. So I don't care that hers, it's not the same. It shouldn't be the same. It shouldn't be the same value. It's not the same size. So I don't have an issue with that. And I just think that people need to be looked at for each individual piece of land. I've said it before. His doesn't afford him what that one does. It doesn't need to be at a 0.2. Brings him closer to what he paid for it. It doesn't matter. It was the wrong value. It's not our job now to get him back to what he paid. It's our job to say that it was wrong. It needs to be a much more modest value based on the use. And I think that's what we're trying to do here.
Okay, thank you, Paulette. Ronique, you had your hand up, and then Catherine.
Yeah, so the reason why they were looking at 1790 is because it's Creekside, right? So, I mean, and it would be, the appellant would be valued less than that property anyways, because when you put in the condition factors to match it, it would be a smaller square footage or acreage, I should say. And so, and what he was doing is by doing it at SB8 with the condition of 0.9, that recognized that he does not have beachfront. So we tried doing it the appellant's way and by making it into that kind of property, and it went up in value. So I honestly think the way that we have it valued is we're valuing it as it's not beachfront, and we did a condition of 0.9, which lowered it from the other house. It brought it to 1.538, and he paid 1.52. I mean, I'm fine with our assessment after looking at all the corrections that we've looked at. It's not a card correction. It's not an error. We actually did a better job with evaluating it this way.
Catherine?
I definitely feel angst with the purchase price too. However, we have heard hundreds of appeals, and many brought and said the appraisals, the town appraisals for many of the sales were approximately 8% according to the curve below what they were recorded. And it was that sense of fairness. I love when and we hear from people who, they use their sale price to get down, that they were overappraised. I still think I've got to prioritize some semblance of the valuation of the land, because I think we've hit a tipping point with the valuation of how we value our land. And I'm going to prioritize that, but I absolutely agree with the angst of the purchase price. So not discounting that for anybody. But just my piece.
Okay. Any other comment? Then I believe we're at the point where we have to vote on changing the town's value to the granted part number.
Wait, did we vote on the Granton part? I know Judy seconded it.
No, we didn't vote on the grant.
Okay, so we need to do that. We need to, So Paulette made the motion, correct? And Judy seconded it. We talked about it, so we need to vote on changing the amount from, what was it, 1.1 million, Harold, to the 1.3 that was amended or being
The top,
amended.
from the appellant's requested value to the new value, right?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
so all those in favor of changing the appellant's opinion of the
alphabetic.
value to the $1,345,100, please raise your hand.
Are we doing the roll call?
We gotta do roll call.
We have
The
to do
roll call. Alexis,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
I'm going to vote no on this one. John,
I'm gonna vote no.
Judy,
Yes.
Kathleen,
No.
Colette?
Yeah.
Peter,
No.
Monique,
No.
the vote, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor, yes, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no. The change is not granted. The motion fails, 4, 5, 0.
So I have a question.
Now the original,
Now- Oh, I'm sorry.
Colette, go ahead.
I have a question. So now, where does this end? We don't vote to grant him what he deserves. So now what does he do? We go back to where the assessor increased his value? Is that what he ends up with now, a higher value?
No, it's what the current value is that the town has on the property, which is the 1,500,000, excuse me, let me find it. $1,538,400. And we vote either on that number or the appellant's requested value of $1,173,500.
We're not voting on the new value that the assessor gave him, which is higher than what they actually had him at to start with. Is that right?
That's correct. That doesn't take place with this vote.
Okay.
Okay. All those in, any further discussion?
and just Kathleen,
those-
just point of, I'm sorry, we're back to the original motion, right? Because the amendment failed.
That's correct.
So
We're
we're now
back to the original motion, the town's value versus the requested value of $1,173,500. All those in favor of granting this appeal to the requested value, please raise your hand.
Are we doing the roll call, Harold?
Alexis,
Yes.
Catherine,
No.
I vote no. Harold votes no. John,
No.
Judy,
Yes.
Kathleen,
No.
Paulette?
Yeah.
You vote yes, Paulette?
Of course.
Peter,
No.
Monique?
No.
No.
The vote is 1, 2, 3 in favor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm missing one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 noes. The appeal is not granted. The vote is 3 in favor, 6 opposed. Appeal is not granted. Okay, we're down to our last one.
Should we take a 10-minute break? Because this is probably gonna take another hour. Although this is, this is a real easy, it should be a real easy one, but I'm sure it's gonna take another hour. You wanna take, I don't know, I'd love to take just a 10-minute break because I need to get up.
All right,
I
Let's-
second that. Last.
let's meet 8:30 sharp. 8:30, that's a
Perfect.
little bit more than 10 minutes from now.
Thank you.
8:30,
Yep.
we will reconvene.
Okay.
You started the recording yet? Okay.
Yep.
This is Harold Zawatsky.
Recording has started.
This is Harold Zawatsky. This is the resumption of our appeal that we are reconsidering. Today is May the 12th and the time is 8:32 p.m. And again, I was asked by a member of the board who was in the minority decision to bring this appeal up for reconsideration, and in the spirit of bipartisanship, I'm doing that. This appeal was initially heard by, I believe, Alexis Harrison, but Paulette is the one who asked me to bring it back to the table, to motion to bring it back to the table. I'm not sure who is going to start the discussions. I have no information by which I am bringing this motion back to the appeal to the table for reconsideration, except that I'm doing so in a bipartisan manner. So this is Harold Zawatsky. I'm motioning to bring back to the table appeal number 528. The address is 173 Fairfield Beach Road. The owner is Thomas and Rebecca Scalera.
I think it's 193. Is that what you said? I'm sorry if you did.
528 is the appeal number. 193 Fairfield Beach Road is the address.
Very good, sorry.
Okay, thank you. And the account appellant's value is $4,500,000, and the appraised value by the town is $5,180,700. I make the motion to bring this back for reconsideration. Do I have a second? Alexis seconds. All those in favor of bringing this appeal back to the table, please raise your hand.
We need discussion first
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
about why we're
Discussion.
bringing it back.
Yes, Paulette or Alexis, would either of you like to state why you have requested that I bring this back to the table?
Yeah, sure. And I'm sure Paulette has some comments on this as well, but I know that there are some issues with the square footage and how Ken calibrated the square footage. And the owner takes issue with how big his house actually is. He doesn't believe, what the town says. And I know Ken was out there last year, but the owner, and we can go into more details about this, the owner doesn't believe he recalibrated it the correct way. There was also discussion about the notion of privacy. This home is obviously on the beach. It's a lovely home on Fairfield Beach Road. And, someone, I don't know who it was, said that, oh, this gentleman has a lot of privacy in his, in the vicinity, but he actually doesn't. He's actually right on Fairfield Beach Road, right next to the pavilion, right by the beach club. And he has, interlopers coming into his property all the time. And he just didn't feel that was articulated during our deliberations. Someone said that he actually had privacy when in fact he doesn't. He hears, loudspeakers for yoga classes at 7 a.m. And he just believes that should be, a factor incorporated into our deliberations. I can continue if that's helpful. Paula, if you want to jump in, let me know. But he else, so I will pause there.
Okay. Any further comment?
We can go into the measurement a little more, and if the assessor is still on, I would just love to hear more of the recollection from Ken and what he noted. The gentleman, Mr. Scalera, just said there's a
Hello?
I think you're paused. I don't know if you can still hear me, but I think we'll wait for Alexis to come back. But I would like to state something. Alexis, are you back with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but I think you are still using up your bandwidth. There you go. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you?
Okay, okay. Well, let me say that this is being brought back for reconsideration, and I'm looking for new information. I do believe that when we first deliberated this, the topic of square footage came up, and an adjustment was made to the square footage by the town after an inspection and discussion with Ken, who discussed the fact that there was a atrium that was deducted from the square footage already.
Okay, that's not, I didn't get to finish, so that's not right from what I understand from the homeowner. I continue.
So what is the new information that you have?
So he believes not only recalibrate the square footage for new errors in the initial square footage of the home, and certain were not brought into consideration that he was hoping Ken would do. Basically he believes that, Ken ignored his request for an adjustment for this open air foyer because, focused on, correcting other errors that was in the measurements he believed. He believes the house is still being measured 538 square feet than it really is. And I can pause there if you want to add anything. Follow up.
I just want to, thank you. I just want to add too that there's that piece of it, but also, in our deliberating, as Alexa mentioned, comments were made with regard to how valuable, what brought value to his property. And I believe that it's only fair, since we did not hear his side of that, we just had that, some conjectures made about what probably could happen there or is happening there. And now he wants to clarify that. I think he has every right to, because what was presented to us by a board member is not correct. And I think he has the right to have that corrected and for us to think about what he's really saying goes on that property and around that property, which is far different from what was mentioned during our deliberations. So I think he has the right to have that heard.
Right.
Well,
I will forward a picture that he sent that I will send to the board again. Again, I think he emailed over that people are going in his property on his patio, in the morning at night, and it's really their privacy. And it's actually quite uncomfortable sometimes at times. And there are also, other reasons here too. I will re-forward that picture shortly. The cost of square footage, is 18% higher than his two closest neighbors that built at the exact same time, and he believes that they use much higher quality materials than he is. So you understand why his house per square foot is 18% higher.
Okay.
So that's why.
Let me ask if we could deal with each of those 3 points separately. First, on the square footage, was the appellant present or someone present when Ken went into the house to do the measurements?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
This
I
is Ross.
presume someone.
This is Ross. I
Ross?
believe
Was someone
with
present?
the owner. I
So
believe
someone
Ken
was
met
present
the
to
owner.
let him in. He didn't go through a back window. He was let in by the owner. Okay. So the owner had an opportunity to discuss with Ken his measurements and what was being measured, and Ken would have done his measurements based upon the way that measurements are done in similar homes. And so I'm not questioning.
I'm not questioning that.
I'm not questioning how Ken did the measurements, because if something was pointed out to him by the owner, I'm sure that would have been taken into consideration, or if not, then there was some reason for that. So
Okay,
we
I'll just
do,
repeat what I just said, and he did say Ken ignored his request for an adjustment for this open foyer because he believed that Ken was focused on getting the basics of the home correct. I'm not, that this judge, came to us under oath. I'm not going to assume that he's lying. I'm sure Ken isn't lying either. I'm sure there are always different stories and different, recollections of things. It was over a year ago. So
oh,
basically, the owner is saying if we started in the right place initially, they would have been able to make this open air foyer adjustment when he was at his house. He just believes this process has been incredibly unfair in that regard. That's just one.
well, again, we discussed the square footage. You had subsequent discussion with the homeowner after our initial deliberations and vote? Did you have a discussion with him since
I
then?
did not have a discussion with him. He emailed me asking why the appeal was denied.
And did you share that information and add it to the file?
I did not share why it was denied.
Okay. No,
I mean,
share.
that's not usually, honestly, Errol, that's not in our practice. And I usually defer to the chairman to correspond with the appellants.
Okay, well, you could have shared that with me because that would have helped the appellant, certainly. Now, the second item about privacy. Okay, why does he think that he has less privacy than any other homes on the beach?
Because he's adjacent to the pavilion, which is a public facility where a lot of people go. And people actually come into his property because they believe it's maybe an extension or what have you. People are coming onto his property who are trespassing. He is adjacent to the pavilion.
Did you notice from the pictures that he has his property fenced?
I would have to look again.
Alexis,
Alexis,
Alexis, didn't he have a couple of people actually urinate on his property too?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're partiers, it's Fairfield, a lot of Fairfield, whatever. There's been a lot of mayhem down there in particular.
His property is fenced.
The point he still has articulated that people are coming onto his property, whether it's fenced or not. Kids usually find a way into places or whatever. I'm not going to suggest that he's not telling us the truth.
Right, okay. All right, that I take it that he's seen people urinating on his property, okay?
I know people who live down at the beach. There are interlopers all the time, and it's not very pleasant.
And people walk their dogs, between Labor Day or October 1st and April. So the dogs are also urinating on the beach in front of his home. So granted, that happens. But let me just get to the third point that you mentioned, or Paulette mentioned, about the square footage of the land. What did you learn from that, Paulette? Did you have further communications with the homeowner after the last deliberation and voting?
No, I don't remember saying anything about the square footage of his land.
Oh, what was your third point?
What I was saying just now was that, I thought that we should look at his whole appeal because he did have questions about how his stuff was calculated. And, in the deliberating, trying to sway people's opinions of what things really are, people make comments that are not appropriate they're not appropriate because they don't really have that knowledge. They're just coming up with it as a maybe. And so this man was actually he wanted us to hear his version of what actually goes on that property, and not just leave us with the understanding that, well, he's got great property. That lot next door adds great value to his property. It adds no value to his property. Maybe that's what you were.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying maybe that's what you thought I was referring to when I was talking about property.
Okay. Well,
But there's a big issue with the measurements, and honestly, there are two parties here who have two different stories. Maybe we should just have the guy go out and remeasure them and have everything sussed out so everybody's happy.
This is Harold. I believe there was a second remeasurement recently.
But it didn't meet the satisfaction of the owner. It happened a year ago. Obviously it took place.
There was a measurement since then, I believe. All right.
Is
We are
there,
still, we're still discussing whether or not we wish to bring this back to the table. Is the square footage differential the only reason that you wish to bring this back to the table?
and privacy issue as well. I think
All right,
that's-
what is
that's
the privacy issue?
Actually, I have an issue with how the whole thing ended, and I just have an issue with, with the fact that his value appears to me, even now, I've looked at this 100 times, that his value, the value placed on the property seems too high, based on any comp you can find on Fairfield Beach Road.
Okay,
I just
so
don't-
Mrs. Harold, let me remind you that we are starting from scratch if we bring this back to the table.
Yeah.
So nothing that we discussed before necessarily has any bearing on our new considerations if we decide to bring this back to the table.
Yep.
Okay. So is there anything new that you wish to bring to light?
I thought we had a little discussion, and now we have to vote on whether or not to bring it back to the table for consideration. Isn't that what we have to do now?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay. So I'll do a roll call vote.
But I do appreciate, your bipartisan here and this initial conversation. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that, Alexis. So I will call a roll call vote on all those in favor of bringing this appeal back to the table for discussion. Alexis,
Yes.
Catherine? Speak up, please.
No.
I vote no. This is Harold. John,
No.
Judy,
A very big yes.
Kathleen,
No.
Paulette,
Absolutely, yes.
Peter,
No.
say again. Peter,
No. No.
Ronique,
No.
okay, the vote is 1, 2, 3 in favor, yes. To bring it back to the table, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 no's. This appeal is not being brought back to the table for reconsideration. Thank you very much. This concludes.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make I just want to make one comment. You said, and I get it. I get it. And obviously, everyone's vote is taken, but what you said really bipartisanship, and I think we've all been that way during this pre-appeal process. And I was hoping we could have a conversation about this. I'm disappointed that we can't. I was hoping in the spirit of bipartisanship and on a light and on a good note, we could do it. It's disappointing that we can't.
This is Harold. I feel that I've given those people who asked me to bring it back to the table every opportunity to present new information or information that they believe is worthy of bringing this back to the table for reconsideration. I do not feel that I personally felt that there was sufficient information to do so. And I believe that there were 5 others that didn't feel that it was appropriate to do so, that there was sufficient information. So as chairman, I think the vote is final. It wasn't my decision alone to bring it back to the table or not. We had 9 members, we had the full body, and the vote was 3 in favor and 6 opposed. Therefore, the majority vote is not to bring it back to the table. And I'm sorry you feel that way, but perhaps Mr. Scalera, the appellant, can seek relief coming back next year, or other methods that he has, including speaking with the assessor or taking it to the courts, taking his appeal to the courts and seek relief among those 3 areas. So, but for the 2020 grand list, his appeal is not granted.
Harold, I have a question. I just want to get something clarified, just so I'm clear on something, if I may.
If it doesn't
Well, my
happen with
thing
our
is-
next item, this voting is closed.
I didn't want to vote. I just wanted to ask something. I just want to clarify, I understand that we voted not to bring this back to the table, meaning that we don't want to hear any more evidence. We don't want to hear what he has to say. We don't want to give him a fair shot. And we don't want to hear him talk about all the things that are wrong with his property, but we were very willing to hear somebody on the board talk about all the wonderful things about his property that she had no idea was really true. Just so I'm clear on what we did, because I don't want anybody to think that we were trying to prepare.
You should be clear on what we did. When you say he,
Harold, don't get it. I'm being sarcastic. I know exactly what we did. I know exactly what we did and what we
Okay.
shouldn't have.
Paulette,
Ridiculous. I'm waiting. What are you going to do to me, Harold? Throw me out? It's too late for that. I'm waiting for my
Paulette?
final. I can really blast the rest. Give me my shot at that.
you said, I just want clarification on what you said. That he said that he offered new information, or he offered information in the hearing that we didn't consider. Which one was it?
To be honest with you,
What?
what I'm getting, comments were made during our deliberations, as happened several times, many times, that were not appropriate because we had no proof that they were true. They were just things that people made up or thought that that's the way it really was when it wasn't. This man wanted to tell us what was really going on there. But we're not going to discuss that because we've decided that it's not worthy of our time. He can just go to court. So another beautiful decision by the board. That's all I'm going to say
When-
about it.
Okay, when was he going to tell us this information?
Pardon me?
When was he going to tell us this information?
That's what we're going to do for you. But we didn't get that opportunity, and that's the way it was voted, and that's the way it is. But I just find it very, very unfair that the board was very willing to listen to a person on the board's comments that were inappropriate and untruthful, but we don't give the appellant the same courtesy, because that's what we do. So
Well, the recordings are online and anyone can hear the comments that you're referring to. We don't have to discuss it now. This voting has closed, and as chairman, I am calling the next item on the agenda.
go ahead.
This discussion is closed.
Not if
The
I don't want it to say, but go ahead, Harold. What are you
The
going to do
next-
about it? Are you going to do anything about it? No.
The next item on our agenda is closing comments from the board members and the assessors. Excuse me. I would like to offer,
I'd like to read.
I'm speaking.
Katie.
I'm speaking. When I finish, you can speak, okay?
Okay. Yes, fine.
All right. I would like to offer everyone 2 to 3 minutes, if they choose to do so, to offer their closing comments on this year's 2020 BAA proceedings and our appeals. And I'd like to do that in an alphabetical order. If that's okay with everyone, I thought that that would be fair. Again, if you wish to speak, if you could limit it to 2 to 3 minutes, that would be fantastic, so we could end this session and adjourn our BAA hearings until September. So I would like to start off by asking Alexis, would you like to offer your comments?
Mr. Chairman, you said I could speak when you were done. I just want to register my objection to the assessor participating in the final
I'm
comment.
happy to yield to Paulette. That's fine.
Not a member of the board, shouldn't be even involved anyway, has been allowed to be at your and Kathleen's doing. You've made us a portion of his department, so he doesn't really belong in this, as far as I'm concerned. That's all.
Okay, Paulette, Ross is part of our deliberations process because
No,
you have asked him, he is present because you have had the ability to ask him questions. Even this evening, you have asked the assessor questions, and he is here for our use. And I say use, by that I mean we can ask him questions and he can give us answers. You have used our assessor in that way. All of
Yes,
the board members have used
That's
this.
the way,
I'm finished.
that's-
When I'm finished, you can speak, okay?
of course, No.
we have all used the assessor in that regard, and I'm giving him the opportunity to speak if he chooses to do so, but I'm not going to negate that he was present during our hearings.
Fine, that's fine, Harold. Yes, I've used him when it's appropriate to ask questions. I have not invited him to deliberate with us, asked him what he thought of values like you all did, allowed him to do slide presentations in prior years, allowed him to deliberate Kathleen's appeal with her last year or the year before. No, I don't believe that was appropriate. You guys have turned him into one of us. So do whatever you want with him, Harold. You're the chair. You're in charge. Do what
Thank
you want.
you. So I would like to move to the next item, as I said in our agenda,
Whatever you want.
closing,
Harold.
closing comments from the board members and the assessor. And I'd like to do it in alphabetical order, if that's okay. Alexis, would you like to start?
Sure. I would really sincerely like to thank all the board members here. I know this has been a considerable amount of time from all of us, and it's hard. We all have families and jobs and a lot of commitment. So thank you for your time. I wish it wasn't as acrimonious as it has been. I hope we can do better next year. Sure, I could do better. I am, upset by this last appeal. I was hoping that, I took Mr. Chairman's word that he would be bipartisan, but as I tried to go through some of the evidence, he kept kind of shutting me down, saying, "Oh, well, I don't hear any new evidence." So I was hoping he would have a better spirit in his approach on this, as he said he would. Nothing more to add. I hope, I would add that I hope the assessor does reach out to this gentleman who has talked about this issue with the measurement. I know our first select woman is really big on customer service, so I think it would behoove the assessor to reach out to this gentleman who has issues with his measurements. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. Catherine?
I put together some comments. This is all new to me. This was my first time serving on a board. So start my timer, Kathy. You will not rudely interrupt me, but no particular order. I do want to thank everybody for their earned a tremendous lot. And, Kathleen, if you weren't so organized, I don't know how I would have ever known when to schedule, and the pushing and the prodding to get the meetings on and the quorums made, and just a lot of dedication from a lot of people. So I personally think the scheduling efforts were pretty much Herculean, and you did a great job doing it. I don't know how we would have gotten even this far. Although it was contentious at times, I think I learned a lot. And I was just trying to come up with some process improvements that I thought might help. Things that it was a great growth, and I'm glad to have met the challenge on some of them. But I do think that hearing some of the really high-end property appeals and some of the commercials, if there was a set number, if the town has something appraised at X dollars, whether that's 3 million or 5 million or something, I think we should just pass on those and let them be heard by more knowledgeable people than having to move us along the learning curve. I think because of Kathleen's organization with all the data, we knew that there were going to be certain neighborhoods that just had an amazing number of appeals, and the density of the complexity of those appeals. I think those should have been moved to a different process, and I don't think we would have been weighed down as much. I think there should have been all of us moved along a learning curve together on that. Just think there was a better way to do that when we see such a density of appeals, a high number of appeals coming from a specific area, which kind of leads me into, when we have that density, we also have, I would have appreciated more appraisers in the valuation to hear certain appraisers just have, the evidence that's presented. I like to hear from a variety of sources versus, there were probably 2 appraisals that just did so much of the volume. I'd like to encourage more appraisers in the process. And then overall, just as one of our last appeals to be reconsidered, I'd like to, gather some more information on assessments for the sale prices, those properties that were sold during the year. I'd like to see how that, okay. And my last little comment, that's a nice way to do that, Kathy. Okay, shut it off. My last little, I would like to, dive into a little more of the sales and how those properties should be appraised, the town value should be appraised. And my last, I'd love to do a little more research on how we're valuing land. I finished under 4 minutes, I'm sure. But thanks all. It was great meeting you.
Thank you, Catherine. I believe alphabetically, at least by first name, I'm next. Well, what can I say? The Board of Assessment Appeals hearings and deliberations for the real estate and some personal property appeals was very different this year. We had an unprecedented volume of appeals to deal with, combined with restrictive COVID regulations that we were obliged to follow. Yet we persevered and have now completed our task and performed the duties we were appointed to do to the best of our abilities. So I just want to thank all of the board members, whether you were elected to the board or appointed by the town to assist the BAA in completing its work. At the end of this BAA term in September, after we hear the automobile appeals, the board will be left with just 2 elected members finishing out their terms. I encourage the 4 appointed members that volunteer their time, their thoughtfulness, and commitment this year to consider applying to join the board next year and to utilize the knowledge and experience that they have gained. Do not let this knowledge and understanding go to waste. The BAA provides an important service to our community. I believe we can all be at our best when we seek the truth, try first to understand and then be understood, and let reason and compromise outweigh personal bias and ideology. Thank you. And next we have John.
Okay, so first off, I'd like to echo Catherine's comments about Kathleen and organizing and keeping us together. Great job. Thank you. And also I have learned a lot by being on this, about real estate and appraisals and taxes and a variety of areas. I really have tried to not, when representing the appeals I heard, to try to be neutral and just restate the facts of what was presented to me by the appellants. Sometimes and really tried, I didn't feel like I was supposed to be an activist or on their behalf. And I do feel that sometimes in presenting it can be, fairly, emotional, and that, depending on the situation and case, and that we do try to advocate for other people on their behalf, So I guess, we've had a lot of, we've heard, what was it, 600 appeals, plus appeals, and just trying to present them the way that the appellants did. And I know Paulette has said in the past that we start off and we already give our opinion of, I can support this, I can't support this, this is an easy one to decide on and such. So that's one comment. And then the other comment, again, to echo Catherine, I think that I understood why we originally said we wanted to do commercial properties, that we may be able to have, clarified, or, if there was a clarified any misunderstandings between the town or the and the appellant. But I think having sat through this, I think in future sessions that commercial properties over $1 million, we just give them a pass and don't hear it, because based on, I think Harold had 40 or some odd ones and I had 20 plus, that basically we brought people in to go through the motions so they could go to court. So I'd recommend that we, going forward, the BAA doesn't hear $1 million or higher commercial properties. And that's it.
Thank you, John. Judy?
Wow,
Nailed
that
it.
was John.
Nailed
That
it.
was amazing.
Pencil drop.
All right. Okay, I'm going to make mine fairly brief. And first of all, I do have to thank everybody on the board. I do appreciate Harold. Harold, you're a sweetheart. And we do get a little heated sometimes. But I do also want to thank the town for my appointment to help and assist. And I think there are a couple of these appeals, and I'm like really, really proud that we really did the right thing. And I'm so grateful that I played a part in that. And as much as I say that, I also have to say that there was a number of what I would consider miscarriages of justice, where their appeals really should have been granted. And I'm very, very disappointed that they weren't. Especially when they came with a lot of details, the appraisals that when the appraisers came in, and these are licensed appraisers, that we didn't listen to the appraisals, and that was really upsetting to me. Real estate is my business, and the appraisals, it's good enough for the bank. It has to be good enough for us, but it wasn't. But all in all, it was an interesting and nice experience, and I am so glad that I was able to help the people that I did, and to meet all of you, and that's I think that's it. I could probably go on and on. I didn't want to prepare anything. I just wanted to just state. I didn't write anything down. I just wanted to. I had to say that. I had to say that I feel badly for the people that really should have had their appeals granted. That's it.
Thank you, Judy. Kathleen? You're muted.
Like everybody else, I want to thank everybody on the board, Harold, elected members, Harold for chairing, and Paulette for stepping up in February and taking over when Carol resigned, very close to the start of the process. That was a really big thing for you to do. And I want to thank the four that, Catherine, John, Ronique, and Judy for taking on this task. There's no way, when we told you you'd be done by the end of March, and that you stuck with us through all this time. When you, volunteered to do this, we were elected and you were asked, and you guys were amazing. Like, never could have expected that kind of a contribution. And to Ross and Kathy and Prue for all their, efforts keeping us organized, answering our questions, doing all the minutes and everything. I put a quick list of some of our accomplishments together that I thought were important. This year we started using scripts for our hearings to make sure that all the appellants, heard the same thing from the hearing officers. I think that was effective, even if it needs some work. The assessor's office puts tens of thousands of pages online so the public could see all the backup. We broadcast all of our hearings live, our deliberations live. We implemented systems for rescheduling and hearings, making requests for the assessors. And all the field cards are online for the first time. That's a new thing this year. So I think, we've made some really good progress in transparency and, in making better decisions because we have access to better information. Some of the things that I think I wish we'd done this year, as you all know, I feel like, we're here for all the taxpayers, and it's fair and equitable for everybody. To that end, I wish we kind of had an information session early on so that some of the taxpayers could have learned better how to understand their cards. and got to look at sales data so that they could have made better cases in front of us instead of just talking about their neighbors, that they would have understood the process a little bit better. And one of the things that I also was a little bit disappointed in or wanted to do this year was throughout this process, we came across some properties that were significantly undervalued due to coding errors during the revaluation or other things in neighborhoods. And, you know, one example was the houses in the Sherman neighborhood that have a coding error, and they are, you know, significantly undervalued. So I hope that some of those things can be looked at for the next grand list and that everybody ends up paying their fair share. And, you know, there isn't these inequities of some people being under because of mistakes. So in summary, I think, you know, some of our conversations were heated and we didn't always agree, but I think the hard work, diligence, and the dedication of all our members, I think we really made good decisions this year, given the information available, our time constraints, and especially what COVID did to the market and to our ability to meet as a group. It was a challenge. That was it.
Thank you. Paulette, next.
I was, having been on the board for 4 years in the past, I was kind of excited to be asked to do it again, even though it was only for 1 year. Never could I have imagined that it would be as difficult, disappointing, and disgraceful as it turned out to be. I can only say that I hope that the board looks at things differently, is more fair and equitable to the taxpayers, does not use the assessor's office to lean on to get things done or to participate in deliberations. Let them in the room when we're deliberating, make that a part of the group. They are not a part of the group. Nor do I hope that they will not use the town attorney to solve problems for them and to get things done the way they want it done, because he doesn't really have any business involved in this either. He has no control over us. I'd like to hope that the next board really reads the Board of Assessment handbook so they can understand that our job is to look at fair market value, not to defend the assessor's curve, his land values, or make the public understand what he did. Doesn't matter. That's not our job. He did his job the way he saw fit. Ours is to make sure that the fair market value was upheld. I didn't see us do that too many times. The way we treat appraisers, that needs to change. They're treated in a disrespectful manner, disparaging remarks made about them and their work, overthinking, telling them you know better than they do. Terrible way to do business. It's not good because you've said that in front of the public in a recording, and those people are paid by the public. Will they hire them again? I don't know, but you've probably helped to lose business for them, which is not a good thing. Robert's Rules of Order. No one understands it. We weren't using it, and then all of a sudden somebody thought it was a good idea when nobody understood it. We were told not to go to the meeting because after all, we didn't need it. It was more important to deliberate, but now we use it. I think something that started in the 1800s needs a little updating. I still don't get why nobody understands this, but we don't. I think it was a ridiculous idea to use it. I think people vote on things based on the fact that it's going to cost them money out of their pocket if they grant something. If they see a number's too high, they won't vote for it. It's just been a horrible experience based on the last time. Last time, everybody worked together. We had our little disagreements. Everybody got along. This wasn't what I saw this time. It was never bipartisan. Go look at the voting. How many times the Democrats voted together? Very rarely. And maybe only one of them that I can think of voted with the Republicans at times. Just a ridiculous way to do business. We've turned the Board of Assessment Appeals into a full-time job for people who might want to be on it. I don't have this kind of time every year. We heard 650 appeals. Over 150 of them were commercial that we shouldn't have been hearing. And everybody seems to be echoing that. But we did it because we wanted to help the assessor. Not our job to help the assessor, but that's been turned into that too. I think a line has to be drawn in the sand when you ask people to be on the board. They need to have experience in what we're working on. You don't just take them because they wanted to do it. I think there needs to be a stricter standard for who gets on the board. And I can only thank God that there will be only 2 people left on the board and the others have to be elected. Perhaps things will change. It didn't have to be this way.
Thank you, Paulette. Peter? Peter, are you muted?
Yeah. No, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I guess I'm just going to say it. Just thank all of you for your service to the town's taxpayers. That's enough. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Ronnie?
Hi. Yeah, I do want to, echoing a lot of what people said, thank you all for having me on this board this year. You know, I've learned so much this year. I mean, from being a financial advisor to being in vaccine sales and to doing kind of a bit of real estate, I've learned a lot from all of you, especially from the realtors. I mean, and from Ross, and going through all the training programs and videos and sessions that we learned before coming onto the board. I definitely learned a lot along the way. I don't believe my voting reflected my inexperience, but I do believe that I have voted fairly in accordance to us all as fellow taxpayers in a fair, equitable way. I do want to thank Kathy and Prue so much for taking all the minutes. And Catherine, you have been monumental in getting all of this scheduling, getting all of these minutes put together, coordinating all of this. I mean, educating. I mean, it's been a real pleasure working with you. And Harold, thank you so much for asking me to join. I'm really happy I did. I've had a lot of great experiences on this board that I don't want to lose out on. And so I am just really appreciative for all the experience and everything I've learned throughout this entire process and meeting all of you.
Thank you, Ronnie. I think that includes all 9 board members. Ross, are you on the line with us? Would you like to offer some closing comments, please?
Sure. I'll just like to thank all the board members, especially those volunteers that probably got into way more than they expected. So, you know, thank you for your service and all your time, because this was certainly a much longer process than we all anticipated. So thank you all again.
Okay. That concludes the 2020 BAA hearings and deliberations meetings for this year. Our next meeting will be in September for automotive. That should probably not last more than half as long as this did. Just joking, that will be probably a day. And really do consider those who volunteered and those who were on the board this year to come back next year, speak with your party leaders and ask them to put you on the ballot for the elected position for a 4-year term, and don't let the experience and knowledge that you've gained go to waste. Thank you all. I appreciate all of you and all of your help, and I hope that we can continue to be respectful to each other when we see each other in the street, because we all live in this town, and carry on. Thank you. Goodbye. This meeting is adjourned. Do I have a second to adjourn?
Second.
Okay. Paul, John, you motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I motion to adjourn.
All right. I'm going to give it to Judy to second the motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Right. Thanks, folks. Bye.
Night.
Again.
Very good night.
Go time, Ronique.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.